Well, hello. Hi there. Spencer Combs here, and this is welcome to another Tuesday Night Live. We're going to answer some questions and handle some stuff that's been coming at us over the last couple of days. And first off, let's kick it off with saying Happy New Year. So we're doing this video right now. It is January the 1st, 2019. 2019. So kind of exciting. And I always like to take a moment and look back at the previous year and discuss a little bit of some of the changes we could have made. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. But before I get into all that, let me just tell you what we're going to talk about today. Today's topic is going to be 3 critical mistakes that most people make when they're setting goals. So we're going to talk about the 3 critical mistakes that most people make when they're setting goals. And I've got a little bit of experience around this because I've seen so many people. I've worked with so many people coaching over the last, over a decade now. I'm going into 2 decades, the greater part of 2 decades, helping people, business owners, and so on, adjust what they want and where they want to go. So we're going to talk about that as we get going further into this session tonight. Hello, Chris. Glad you're here. All right, so real quick, let me tell you what we're doing here at Spencer Combs Resources. We are right now looking at doing some full immersion events. I'm looking at debating between 1 day versus 2 day. That's probably the fastest way to create impact in people's lives. So that's what we're in the middle of. We also are building some courses out, doing a whole lot of training, studying. So we've got a bunch of stuff in the pipeline here, and we're going to be pumping this stuff out over time. So we're here in 2019, and we're excited about it. So that's kind of what we got going on in the background. Had a great time last night. I'm assuming you guys did. You did as well. Give me a thumbs up or something. I don't know. Let me know how was your day, how was your weekend, and actually it feels, I don't know about you, but it feels like the last 2 weeks have almost been like a weird vibe. Kind of depends on what kind of work you're in, but in my world, almost like half the world just checked out. So it's just kind of strange. So anyway, now I'm assuming as this week winds down and we go into next week, it's probably going to start picking back up, because my suspicion, especially in the business world, not the retail world, but in the business world where I live in most of the time, which is real estate, I suspect we're going to have this pent-up demand. All of a sudden, it's just going to bam, everybody's going to be ready to go. So we got to get ready for that. If you're in the real estate business, be ready for that, because I suspect that's kind of where it's going to happen. So anyway, moving forward, let me ask you a quick question. What did you learn from 2018? What did you learn from last year? It is an incredibly powerful exercise if you don't sit back and look at your successes and the areas that you feel like you've probably failed. You know, I don't necessarily look at everything as a failure. I usually look at them as feedback. So the only way I can get feedback is to look back on it and learn. So what were the things you learned from 2018? Now, I'm going to share with you these 3 critical mistakes that most people make during when they're setting goals for themselves. But before I really get into that, let me do a little backdrop here. First off, I believe that the general population doesn't even set goals. Now, I think this time of the year is when most people get aware, a little more aware. They talk about the resolutions. They want to do this. They want to do that with their life. That's kind of the world I live in all year long. So it's nothing new to me. It's just kind of weird that the rest of the world suddenly becomes aware. Here's the point in that most of us live our lives very unconsciously. It's the same pattern. We just go, we do, consistently do the same thing on a regular basis, and then we just kind of have this yearning or wish that we could do things differently. And I think that the average person nowadays lives in an unconscious state where they just kind of keep going through the motions. The only way you're really going to ever decide to set a goal is if you, in fact, go through the process and create a threshold enough to where you actually wake up, right? You wake up and you decide to become conscious. I want to do something different with my life. I want to do something different with my business, with my relationship, with my money, with my health. Whatever the situation may be, we've got to wake the bleep up. So anyway, for us to be able to move forward and make some changes, we got to go from the unconscious state to a more conscious state, and that's where goal setting comes in. So I'm going to assume that you're on here, you're watching this with me, you're hanging out with me, and you have you thought about this a little bit. So now you're awake, you're conscious about this whole thing. You're going to move forward into 2019 this year, but this is going to be true for you. Honestly, on a weekly and daily basis, you should be considering this. So this is part of the process and what I'm referring to. So mistake number one that I see a lot of people do, they don't set probably the easiest word for me is appropriate goals. Now we could talk about SMART. I'm sure some of you have seen that before. Measurable, attainable, all those. That's actually a really good acronym if you want to set goals. What I'm referring to is when I say appropriate goals, what I've found in my experience, most people do the 3 different positions, okay? It's I just want to make enough money to pay the bills, right? Or I just want to have a good relationship, or I want to have this kind of health. Just good enough, right? So they want to go from something they're bothered with to something that's okay. Then you got the people who are telling me, I specifically recall a young man one time tell me that he wanted to do 100 million in real estate volume in his first year. I'm pretty sure that was the number he gave me. And actually, I thought he meant volume. He was referring to income. So I had to clarify with him what he meant by that. And rather than challenge him on it, I just did the math backwards and showed him exactly how many contacts, which were well into the thousands per day, like 10,000 people a day. I couldn't remember the actual number, but we did the number. And that's a lot of, that's thinking really, really big. But until somebody gets into traction, they're never going to move forward. So I want you to think about your goal, right? The third category is somewhere in the middle, and a lot of people really tell me they share with me what they think is a realistic. That's the word that comes up more often than not. I want to set a realistic goal. I'm going to tell you that's not the appropriate way to set goals. What you really should be doing when you're setting a goal is going back and actually look at your life. What's your lifestyle want to be? What do you want it to look like? And you probably should start 5 years, then go back 3, and then go back to 1. So this year, how does this year's activities need to add up to 3 year and 5 years? Does that make sense? So I'm assuming that does. If it doesn't, feel free to ask questions or reach out to me. Appropriate goals are number 1. Appropriate goals. So if you're thinking too big, how do we chunk that down? And if you're not sure about whether or not something's too big and it's not realistic, right? Oh my gosh, Spencer, there's a happy medium. And it really is specific to you individually. So we're going to have to really get into that with you and talk about what it is you're wanting to do. So appropriate goals are number 1. Mistake number 2. There's no system for adjustment. So a lot of people set up goals and they're like, I want to do this by the end of the year. I want to lose X amount of weight, or I want to make X amount of money, but there's no system for adjustment. So they clarify what they want to do for the year, and then they just go after it. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It just doesn't work out. Well, I'm going to tell you, you want to stay rigid on the result and flexible on the approach. And there's a difference. So your long-term outcome for the year or for the length of time, it could be a 90-day project you're working on, right? So the goal is to finish or complete this. Fine. That's the outcome. It must be done. It should be done. It's got to be done by that time frame for the next thing to take place, right? So we've set the appropriate goal. Now we've got to have a process for an adjustment. So how often are you reviewing your progress? Set yourself up a system for that. Now, personally, I usually do that kind of stuff on Sundays, Sunday afternoons. If that bothers you and you don't want to do it on a Sunday, fine. Friday evening before you go home from work, or early Monday morning before everything gets going. Whatever you want to do, it's up to you. Saturday morning before everybody gets going. Whatever. The point is, you need to spend some time every week reviewing what you've got going on so that you can create an adjustment. That's another mistake most people are making when they set goals. They don't revisit them, for 1, and 2, they don't adjust along the way. Make sense? So that's mistake number 2. Mistake number 3, no accountability in place. So I don't know about you, but it works a lot better when somebody actually asks me how things are going. So if you set a goal, if you want to set a goal for yourself and you're going to, here's what I want to do this year, or here's what I would like to do in the next couple of months, or give yourself a specific commitment you're going to go run to, then share it with the people closest to you, or share it with the ones that actually are going to be impacted by it. So if you're running a business, tell everybody in the business that's working around you what your intention is. Put some accountability in place. So one of the things we do at the Momentum Weekend event, and that's the immersion program that we were talking about a minute ago, one of the things we talk about is inward, outward, and upward when it comes to accountability. So you've got an inward accountability with yourself, and that's what most people rely on. That's only going to go so far, right? Only your willpower is going to work that out, unless, of course, you're conditioned at a high level, which we also teach people how to do. The second thing would be outward accountability. So take your goals, share your goals with people around you. Tell those, especially ones that are impacted. I'm assuming that it's resonating with you. And then the other thing you could do too is you could put it out on a social media platform. You could tell, another fun one is tell your kids. If you have little kids, especially, and a part of your intention is once you meet your goal, that you're going to take them somewhere for something, man, they'll bother you every day for that until you get to where you want to go. So set up some accountability for yourself in that respect. All right. So those are the 3 mistakes: appropriate goals, goals that have a system for an adjustment, and accountability, some sort of response. The other thing too is, of course, I'm in the coaching world. So when someone's calling me, or I call them and ask them, hey, how did we do, right? That creates accountability. So you may want to look into hiring someone to have you coached. One of the things that we do as a coach, of course, is accountability, because we keep doing, actually all of this stuff we're talking about is part of what I do in coaching. We help you set goals that are appropriate. Then we create an adjustment process through it, and we learn as we grow. And then the last thing, of course, is accountability. So anyway, you got to have all 3. If you don't, your goals might be doomed. I don't know. But anyway. All right. That's what I got for you tonight. Not a whole lot of activity here. Guessing everybody's getting ready to go back to work, back to school, back to whatever is going on tomorrow. If you have any questions or anything, you want to just drop a note or comments, feel free to do so right here on the page or wherever you're seeing this video. And look forward to connecting with you guys then. So, all right. Y'all have a good evening, and we'll go from there.